Welcome back to Combat Mission Battle for Normandy for the second mission of the Scottish Corridor campaign. It's now about 5 hours after the first mission, where 9th Cameronians seized Les Hauts de Bosque, but the 2nd Glasgow Highlanders attacking the village of Cheux to the northeast are having less success. That village is a smashed ruin, with rubbled buildings obstructing the streets and knots of fanatical defenders from the 12th SS still holding out, slowing down the British advance. To speed things up, the Cameronians have been tasked with moving up the road to Cheux to clear out the small hamlet of La Rue des Portes. They still need to hold Les Hauts de Bosque, so only 2 platoons have been sent, 16 and 17 platoons from D Company, backed up by the Company HQ elements, the Churchill 95 from the last mission, and a 2-tube off-map section of the battalion's 3-inch mortars. Both of the infantry platoons are under strength after the first mission, with 16 platoons 1st and 2nd sections in particular being pretty hard hit, and a few of the sections and teams are almost down to their last few rounds of ammunition. I can at least resupply them from the stocks in the Company Bedford, Universal Carrier and Willis Jeep, but the Churchill 95 is also very low on main gun ammo, and nobody is looking around extra 95mm howitzer shells for it. So I'm going to have to make do with its 5 remaining heat and 4 smoke rounds, and mostly rely on it as a kind of rolling machine gun bunker. Luckily, there's not a lot of ground to cover, and although the briefing indicates the enemy here are hardcore fanatical SS troops, it also indicates that there aren't very many of them. There are 200 points on the table for wiping them out, another 200 for occupying objective pulpit, which is a roughly 180 by 80 metre square area of buildings, gardens and allotments along the Rue de Nid de Chien, and another 100 for keeping casualties below 20%. The interesting bit in the briefing is that it mentions reports of the enemy having a Tiger in support, which is great news when you have precisely 2 Piats and 5 95mm heat rounds. The 95mm heat can punch holes in the Tiger, especially through the side and rear armour, but with such a low ammo count I'm probably going to be relying on either the Piats or getting the Jocks in close. It should at least be engaged to the north, as it's apparently preying on the British armour in Cheux's direction, so to begin with at least I'm more concerned with the enemy infantry. Getting at this, looks like it's going to be an exercise in advancing to contact down the slight slope of the map, avoiding the open wheat fields and then working the fix, flank and finish sequence. 17 platoon is pretty much already in position to provide a base of fire on Le Clos Bernard up ahead, which should allow 16 platoon and the Churchill 95 to flank it from the road. With that position taken, I'm either looking at going straight for pulpit across the fields, or using Le Clos Bernard as a fire support position for a flanking attack through Le Nid de Chien. We'll see how it develops, but I also need to remember that I've only got 40 minutes here, and although I need to consider casualties with regards to the campaign, the enemy is also, apparently, very few in number. Sending a section from 17 platoon down the road earns them a couple of rifle shots from the far left, prompting me to roll the Churchill forward and open up with the bases. The rest of the platoon in the Orchard doesn't take any fire from the Clos de Bernard buildings up ahead, but sending a team up the left hedgerow on the second turn catches the attention of some kind of nasty looking tank contact on the far right. This turns out to be a Jagdpanzer IV, not a Tiger, but realistically there's not much difference in these circumstances. Going out into the open fields is still a terrible idea, and exploiting the cover of the barrage-lined road is the way forward. So the original plan is actually standing up pretty well, with 17 platoon providing a base of fire and the contact on the far left suppressed by the Churchill. 16 platoon carefully hooks in on Le Clos Bernard, and after 10 minutes or so it's obvious that the farm complex is empty. By now it looks like the enemy team on the far left has bugged out. A brief spot shows a soldier with a scoped Kar 98K, so it was probably a sniper team, and there isn't much sign of further resistance until one of 16 platoon's detached scout teams approaches the Nid de Chien farm and comes under fire from an MG down the road. The road itself is blocked by obstacles, and although the Churchill can't go through these, it can spot the offending enemy infantry and lays into them with machine gun fire. The company sniper team also draws a bit of fire from the attic of a nearby building as it probes up the left, so it's clear that we've actually hit some opposition here. I feel like I'm mostly in position to deal with it though. 16 Platoon has cleared Le Clos Bernard, which will form a base of fire to support 17 Platoon as it swings around the left and attacks through Le Nid de Chien, hitting the defenders in the flank. Complicating matters is the Jagdpanzer. This is moved to take a position in the allotment slap bang in the centre of the pulpit objective. From here, it can cover across the orchard between pulpit and Le Clos de Bernard, where it catches one of 16 Platoon soldiers with machine gun fire as they move to line the low bocage at the back of the farm, and it can cover the T-junction in front of Le Nid de Chiens, which is where 17 Platoon will be attacking from. In other words, I really need to take it out, so up go the Pierts. 16 Platoon's one section, up in the top floors of Le Clos de Bernard, have eyes on the Jagdpanzer, so that platoon's Piert heads to join them, along with the company FO, who is going to organise a mortar preparation for pulpit. 17 Platoon's Piert lurks in the field next to the Churchill, waiting for a team to probe down the road and see if there's a better angle. Instead, the probing team hears MG42 fire coming from the next building, which we're going to call Fountain House, as Germans in the attic fire a part of 17 Platoon that they spot over the Nid de Chien wall. The team instantly nails the enemy soldier they see, then they spot another one a few turns later who is taken out by a supporting Bren gun further back. Fountain House looks like it might be a good position to try and hit the Jagdpanzer from. The tank destroyer is proving frustratingly difficult for either Piert team to spot. Despite other units in Le Clos de Bernard keeping an eye on it, 16 Platoon's Piert just can't resolve the spot, and 17 Platoon's Piert can't get a good line either. It is, in fairness, a low hull-down target behind a slope and behind a low hedgerow, plus the trees at the back of Le Clos Bernard and in the orchard behind it are proving to be annoyingly disruptive. On the plus side, Le Nid de Chiens is clear, and I'm all set to pop 17 Platoon up on the enemy's flank. Sending a section and a platoon's attached Bren into the farmhouse opposite the T-junction instantly nets a casualty from enemy infantry on the corner of Compound House across the road from Fountain House. This is the same contact as before, but at close range it looks like they have an MG42 and a submachine gun, and they quickly pile the lead on. The Bren team gunner gets stuck in, but is spotted and suppressed by the Jagdpanzer up the road and then hit by a high explosive shell. Alongside the house, another section's assault team approaches the hedgerow with an eye to getting a better angle on the Compound House corner, but they're spotted and engaged by MP40 wielding HQ units further inside. This unit also takes a pot shot at the team I send to Fountain House, but luckily they miss. The house itself is clear and swiftly occupied. 17 Platoon's Piert rushes in through more SMG fire and actually spots the Jagdpanzer, but the tank destroyer spots them in return and hits the gunner with a burst of machine gun fire. The Jagdpanzer carries on trying to nail Fountain House with high explosive, but can't hit it for the low bocage out in front. Meanwhile, back on the corner, there are casualties on both sides, but despite the Churchill firing the rest of its machine gun ammunition off, the Germans are hanging on. Spreading out along the Dien de Chien's hedgerow puts more bodies in the fight and expands the angles without drawing more fire from other enemy positions in depth, so I take a two-man team out through a gap on the left to try and hook around and mop up the corner position from behind. They get round and onto the road, but have to go out wide and enter the field of fire of another German team hiding in the garage behind Compound House. Both of them are picked off by an MG42. This feels like it's starting to turn into a meat grinder. 16 Platoon can't spot these German units from their base of fire position in Le Clos Bernard. The Churchill is out of machine gun ammunition. The 2-inch mortars can't get good angles and are ineffective against troops in buildings anyway, and of course, the surviving Piert team just can't see the Jagdpanzer no matter where I put it. They know it's there. I've shuttled them between different teams who can see it, but they're just not making the spot, so I've resorted to moving them forward through the orchard until they resolve it. I've run out of patience with the corner too, so the team at Fountain House, which has crawled back outside to get the building between them and the Jagdpanzer, which is still chucking high explosive at them, throws a smoke grenade out into the street. This is enough to mask an assault team from the tank destroyer as it runs across, shoots the lone survivor of the German corner team, and finally gets Compound House cleared. Of course, Moving into Compound House itself brings the team into more trouble. There's a gap in the bocage in between them and the garage behind it, and a short, sharp firefight erupts. The jocks manage to take out 2 of the enemy, but the last one has the MG42 and manages to wipe them out over the next few turns. Frustration with the Piat, now even closer but still aggravatingly unwilling to fully identify the blatantly German vehicle literally meters away, leads me to send the Churchill back up the road and through La Cloche de Bernard to try and get a flanking shot in. Naturally, the Jagdpanzer spots it first and scores a penetration, killing the hull gunner and prompting the rest of the crew to panic and abandon their vehicle. Finally, after trying to spot the damn thing for literally half the battle, the Piat team has gotten to a point within spitting distance of the Jagdpanzer, and they give in and concede that the contact in front of them really is a German tank and that they can shoot at it. At least at this range, the little idiots couldn't miss. The first shot doesn't register as a penetration because it hits the side skirt, but it looks like the copper jet cuts the track behind it and immobilizes it. A follow-up shot finishes it off, and must have done something nasty to the insides because nobody even tries to get out. To cap the Piat saga off, the gunner is then shot by German troops in a nearby building. By this point there are 3 minutes left on the clock plus some variable extra time, and although the tank destroyer is out of the picture, I've been trading shots with yet another small MG42 based team in the next building along from the garage, lost more men to another position while attempting to flank some more, and have generally had enough. I already feel like I've taken too many casualties and don't want to sustain any more for what I'm sure will be minimal gains in the last few minutes. I let the timer run down to the 40-minute mark, ignore the extra time, and hit ceasefire. The result is, somewhat surprisingly, a British tactical victory. Although Pulpit itself is contested, the Germans have been hammered, with 8 dead, 14 wounded, the Jagdpanzer destroyed and only 8 men still on the field. We've actually gone about 1-to-1 on casualties. I've lost 9 dead and 14 wounded, but I've still got 80 men in the fight, so literally 10 times more, and get the bonus for keeping my casualties under 20%. This mission definitely sucked though. It definitely seemed to combine all the things that make life difficult for the Brits. A heavily armed, fanatical enemy who just won't run away or give up, tucked into terrain where he can engage with automatic weapons at close range, and anemic, ineffective or difficult to use support for the infantry sections. With the Churchill 95 basically out of ammunition, the 3-inch mortars too inaccurate to reliably target small dispersed enemy teams, and both them and the 2-inch mortars ineffective against enemies inside buildings, it really fell down to the sections to get the job done. In some respects, I had a mixed experience here. The Germans in Fountain House were sniped out very quickly with no losses, but the 2 teams in front of Compound House were a nightmare. Even after being flanked and effectively caught in the open, the HQ in the rear went down fighting and had to be finished off by a literal close assault from a team crossing the road in front of the Jagdpanzer. And I really put this off, wanting to take out the tank destroyer first, but looking back, it may have been a better idea to smoke and go sooner instead of getting stuck on Compound House corner. The Jagdpanzer, of course, was its own little nightmare thanks to the Piat. I was probably too aggressive with 17 platoons team. It might have been a better idea to send them round to the Nid-de-Chien farm, though that would have exposed them to Compound House corner. 16 platoons Piat pretty much refused to resolve the spot until they were literally stood next to it, but at the same time it was a tough target to really get eyes on, and the team had a -1 leadership modifier, so maybe Lance Corporal Watney was just a tool. Stupid, crazy things happen in combat all the time. In hindsight, this was another mission I shouldn't have played through in one go. I was definitely making poor, frustrated decisions by the end, and took more than a few casualties trying to speed things up. Despite all that though, the battle still ended up as a tactical victory for the Brits. We've given 2nd Glasgow Highlanders a hand and hopefully sped the process of clearing Cheux up a little bit. In the next mission, we're back in Le Haut-de-Bosque, facing down a German counterattack, which can't be worse than this. Famous last words, but hope you all enjoyed this one and found it interesting. I'll catch you in the next video.